I'll repeat what the situation is with those who actually have been talking with the Americans and have been negotiating with the Americans. We start from this position, which it does bear remembering, that we are in a position where 85% of our trade is tariff-free. We, like every other country in the world, okay? Every other country in the world has issues if they produce any of the following: steel, aluminum, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, forest products, with 232, so-called 232 tariffs in the United States. And so that's what we're having discussions with, or that's what we were having discussions with with the Americans. That's where we're negotiating. We were making progress. Those talks are suspended. That's the situation at present. And it has a couple of implications. One of the core implications is it absolutely validates the strategy we have had from day one.
A major geopolitical shift is quietly taking shape, and it's not happening in Washington, Brussels, or London. It's happening in Ottawa. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Mark Carney, Canada has begun rewriting its role in the world. Once seen as a reliable junior partner to the United States, Canada is now building an identity independent of its southern neighbor, one rooted in resilience, pragmatism, and global engagement. The recent talks between Mark Carney and Chinese President Xi Jinping were not just a diplomatic courtesy. They were a signal that Canada is no longer waiting for America's permission to act on the world stage. This wasn't about ideology. It wasn't about choosing sides. It was about strategy. And for the first time in decades, Canada seems to have everything figured out. Behind closed doors in Beijing, Mark Carney and Xi Jinping sat across a long red table, each man representing a nation searching for equilibrium in a world sliding toward fragmentation. The discussion was described as constructive, and insiders called it a turning point, a moment where Canada quietly reclaimed its foreign policy sovereignty. While U.S. politicians continue to lash out with tariffs and threats, Carney's approach is far more disciplined. Rebuild Canada's strength from within, expand partnerships beyond North America, and position Canada as a bridge between East and West. Yes, Carney addressed delicate topics: foreign interference, human rights, and the need for transparency, but he also did something far more consequential. He reopened Canada's dialogue with the world's second-largest economy. Because let's face it, in a world where 60% of economic growth is happening in Asia, Canada simply cannot afford to be chained to Washington's moods or Donald Trump's tweets. For decades, Canada's political reflex has been to look south, not east, not across the Pacific, not to the global south, but straight toward Washington. That reflex is over. Carney made it clear in his post-meeting remarks. We're focusing on what we can control, building Canada at home, and building new partnerships abroad. Translation: Canada is done begging for trade scraps. While Washington obsesses over protectionism and border walls, Ottawa is designing an entirely new economic map. One where Canadian trade flows not just through Detroit or Buffalo, but through Jakarta, Bangkok, and Manila. Free trade talks are already advancing with Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines, and Ottawa has rekindled its outreach to India, Malaysia, and Vietnam, all fast-growing economies hungry for reliable partnerships. This isn't just diversification, it's liberation. Let's be blunt, the United States no longer behaves like a dependable partner. Its tariff policies under the national security pretext have hit everyone, from steel to aluminum to autos. Washington's logic is simple: America first, everyone else later. But Canada's response has been revolutionary in its simplicity. Canada first, period. Carney's government has refused to be drawn into emotional retaliation or performative outrage. Instead, he's treating trade like a chessboard, not a battlefield. When asked about Trump's refusal to return to the negotiating table, Carney smiled and replied, "We're battling like the Jays, staying calm, focusing on what we can control." It was a quiet jab at America's chaos. Because the truth is, Canada no longer needs to fear an unpredictable White House. It is building its own economy, its own alliances, and its own future, one trade deal at a time. At the heart of Carney's vision lies a bold domestic agenda, a generational investment plan to rebuild the foundations of Canadian prosperity. While others chase short-term headlines, Carney is thinking in decades. He knows that true sovereignty begins at home. This upcoming budget, as hinted during his Asia trip, will unleash unprecedented funding for infrastructure, green energy, research, and domestic manufacturing. The goal is simple: make Canada self-sufficient, technologically advanced, and globally competitive, not dependent on U.S. supply chains or political mercy. That's why Ottawa's policy mantra has become, build at home, trade with the world. This is the new Canadian model, calm, confident, and quietly ambitious. The beauty of this strategy is that it's not anti-American, it's post-American. Carney isn't burning bridges with Washington, he's simply building more of them elsewhere. By strengthening economic links with Asia and Europe, Canada is reducing its vulnerability to U.S. political volatility. And the timing couldn't be better. In a world where the United States is increasingly seen as erratic, Canada's reputation for stability, trust, and fairness makes it a natural partner for countries seeking balance. Whether in the Indo-Pacific, Africa, or Latin America, Canada's quiet diplomacy is opening doors that used to be closed. It's a global strategy rooted in mutual respect, not dominance. And the results are already showing. Foreign investment in Canadian tech, clean energy, and critical minerals is climbing sharply. Ottawa's free trade agreements, once limited to North America and Europe, now stretch across the Pacific. Canada is no longer just the polite neighbor next to a superpower. It's becoming the world's most strategic middle power. Observers noted something else in Beijing, a mutual recognition between Xi and Carney that the world is entering a new multipolar phase. Both leaders understand that the global order can't survive on one superpower's dictates. It needs bridges, and that's where Canada fits perfectly. China needs trusted interlocutors in the West. Canada needs access to emerging markets beyond U.S. control. It's not about choosing sides, it's about choosing stability. Carney didn't lecture Xi, nor did he kneel. He engaged, pragmatically, firmly, and with Canada's interests at heart. That's diplomacy at its finest. If Washington was listening, the message was unmistakable. Canada will no longer wait. No longer will its economic destiny hinge on the mood of an American president or the volatility of U.S. politics. No longer will Canadian leaders apologize for seeking global relevance. Carney's words were calm, but their subtext thundered across the border. We're not scared of you. We're focused on us. That quiet confidence is what truly unnerves Washington. Because a Canada that thinks for itself is a Canada that cannot be manipulated. For the first time in decades, Canadians are witnessing the birth of a new kind of foreign policy. Not reactive, not dependent, but visionary. Mark Carney's leadership is not about rhetoric, it's about results. Under his watch, Canada is not shrinking into the shadow of its southern neighbor. It's standing tall as a country that defines its own path. The talks with Xi Jinping were only the beginning. More partnerships are coming across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And with each handshake, Canada reclaims another piece of its independence. In the coming years, the nations that will rise are not the loudest, but the most prepared. The world is shifting toward collaboration, not domination. Mark Carney's Canada understands this. It's not chasing influence, it's earning respect. While others posture and threaten, Canada is building, quietly, deliberately, and intelligently.